Right, hey guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. I know it's a bit out of the ordinary, it's not the usual upload thing, but I want to get this up as quick as possible as I managed to get top 8 in the Glasgow regional, so I'm bringing you my top 8 deck profile here of Imperialdramon. It has some changes from the last profile, we'll go through them. Hope you're all going to enjoy it though, so we'll get this started. So for our eggs, I'm running 3 of the BT12 DV for the draw. I felt this was very important for the deck to actually see our pieces. But I did run another egg alongside this because I was tailing the deck towards the idea of going against Mother Shoto. So I decided to run 2 BT16 DV for that all turns plus 1000. Because when I combine this with another piece, our fighter mode ace is strong enough to take on Mother Shoto just as it is without any other DP increases and stuff on the Mother side. So I was trying to tailor towards it. If you want to know about matchups and stuff, you'll have to wait till the end of the week on Saturday when we release part 2 of the podcast where we talk about regionals as well as our matchups. And I'll talk about what I went against then. So you'll find out then if I went against any Mother Shoto combo decks. On to our rookies. I'm running 4 of the Searcher Vmon. It's a mandatory in the deck. It searches out the majority of pieces. It is the better searcher out of the 2. Just because of the Tamers you play, this can hit more, and it's the one I'd preferably like to search with compared to the other one, which we're about to go into, which is 4 of the BT12 Wormmon. Again, another mandatory 4 of searches majority of your pieces. There's only one thing in the deck I would say this doesn't hit that Vmon does, and we'll get to that later, but both of them are mandatory. End of turn DNA was fantastic in the deck. It served me so many times. Then we're also playing 2 promo Vmon. I bumped this down from 4 to 2 for my other piece that we'll get into in a moment. Because there wasn't always a Tamer on the board, and even then sometimes I was just digivolving over this in the back. And the when attacking draw 1 is very nice. There was a combo I like to do with this with another piece, and we'll get to that as when we get to it, to get the most value out of it, really. Now, the reason I jumped promo down to 2 was to run 2 BT16 Vmons. So the gain of memory came up quite a few times. It helped me a lot. It actually helped, as at one point, it helped me keep Imperialdramon mode once. Because the gain the memory back from this was, as well as the Dual Tamer. That was enough to help me to go into Imperialdramon mode and keep turn. But the plus 2000, so when we combine this plus 2000 with the plus 1000 from the egg, inheritable wise, our fighter mode ace is suddenly at 16, which is strong enough to fight against Mother Shotos, which was the entire idea I had behind this, but the actual effect of itself did come up more often than I thought it would. Then we're running 1 of BT16 Worm. For the occasions that we need to digivolve from trash, it did come up quite a lot. It was quite a lifesaver, and the suspending when your opponent's Digimon when attacking actually got me a game, as they had some blockers, and when I attacked, this was in line, I could suspend the blocker, hit for game.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, that way you never miss a thing.
On to our level 4s, we're running 4 BT12 X Vmon. Jamming inheritable, it's a thing. Gain of memory when DNA digivolving, helps keep turn, bring turn back to you. Absolutely busted and ridiculous. This, along with its counterpart of Stingmon, is one of the reasons I feel like Partition is so busted, as it did come up quite a few times. Then we're running 1 EX7 Vmon. Jamming, again, inheritable. I never really went into, I never used his main effect jamming, so I never really digivolved on the back, raised, swung with jamming, then DNA. That never really came up. There was other things I'd rather do, like gain the memory back instead. But it was always there as an extra X Vmon to have a worst case scenario. 3 BT12 Stingmons. I could maybe have bumped this up to 4. But I feel like it was at the perfect amount. Gaining memory once again for DNA, digivolve and keep turn, and piercing. Piercing, when it came up, it came up. And it came up quite a bit. There were a few times where I was like, I'm going to say the opposite though. There was a few times where, like, even though it's the board suspended, I can't pierce because they're too big for the level 5. So there was points where it's like, oh, okay, this is not the best Stingmon to have. That being said, though, we are running 2 ST9 Stingmons there was times that I go into this and I wish it was the piercing one. But yeah, being able to hard play this for free came up a lot. So when we had like memory setter set up, and like, okay, raise my line, go hard play for free, be able to DNA and still do it all. Drawing when attacking comes up a lot as well. Just it's absolutely as ridiculous with the amount of times you can attack in a turn and it not be once per turn. You can really just get all the resources that you need in hand to start snowballing your momentum. Then I played the one Lightramon in order so we had something that was both colours. It did come up a few times. Sadly, more often than not, when it came up the fact that I needed a Digivolve into Lightramon to have my DNA, I was Digivolving over a Wormmon, which means I was paying 3 memory and not 2 for a Vmon. That came up more often than not, weirdly, even though I play way more Vs than I do Worms. But yeah, that was a thing. I was also going to say before, so this is actually a piece of the combo thing I was saying where Digivolving over this this over promo, because then like this, like you get to spend one of your opponent's Digimon, and like because obviously most of the time you want this to actually replace the green piece, you kind of still want the jamming, but you get to spend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then at that point you could swing, get the draw from Vmon, and then deal with that Digimon to then immediately DNA afterwards and start getting your swings to get more draws. On to level 5s, and speaking of all the swinging, for BT16 Imperialdramon, it is the most broken card in the entire deck. It is the most ridiculous thing ever. Spend pretty much your opponent's entire board almost every time. Whatever it is suspended, stays suspended for the rest of their turn. It's got a whole board-wide state. When attacking, if there is nothing to suspend, unsuspend, and that also means if they've got a blocker when you attack, okay, suspend the blockers, I'm still hitting. And Partition. Partition is ridiculous in this deck, especially when you combine it with the memory gainers of XV and Stingmon. I was then playing 2 ST9 Imperialdramons as a backup for multiple swing potential, because we would like to see more BT16, but we're only allowed 4. So, but also when Digimon Infected, this came up a few times. Mostly when I was against another as Imperialdramon players, if they didn't have the DNA pieces, I could DNA into this and bottom deck one of their DNA pieces, so then they now have to look for another piece or reset up. Then our last level 5 is BT12 Imperialdramon. This guy, I understand why there was the reason to maybe play him. I only ever went into him because it was the only DNA I had. In hindsight, like, obviously you can't know this, I would have played another ST9 over this. I understand why this guy was getting played, but every time I'd seen him, I wished he was one of the other 2. So that was something I would have swapped out, is I would have made it another ST9 just to play 3 of those. Now, on to our level 6s. 3 BT16 Dragon Mode. Just be able to lock down a Tamer with this, or even a Digimon in case you didn't go Imperialdramon, and having the threat of if you play a Digimon by an effect or Digivolve by an effect, I'm going to Digivolve, is such a big thing that it can put some people off the plays they want to do. There were actually some points where I sat on this and I waited in a matchup where they had multiple chances to play multiple Digimon by effects, and they'd play the first one, and I'm like, no effect. They played the second one, no effect. And then like at that point they was like, oh, he's got nothing, so they went and did all the rest of them, and then when they got the last one down, right, okay, trigger the effect. And I'd go to BT12 fire mode, and it's like, right, I'm bomb decking your entire board now, because you fell into what I was leading you into. So it was quite some plays going on. We are running 2 BT16 fighter mode aces. The one mainly because it's an ace, and it can multiple swing as well. Bottom deck some stuff if you've got Dragon Mode and sources. But worst case scenario, if you're left on your level 5, you can still ace into this if they attack and do some damage. That's and we also have the combo of the egg and the BT16 Vmon. This will be bigger than Mother, which is very nice. 1 BD12 fighter mode. 1 is the perfect amount, I felt. Like, when I seen this is when I wanted it. Every time it came up, it was brilliant. Don't feel like I need to play it at 2. The fact that it's a blocker never came up. There was at one point where an opponent, he had a way to delete stuff on board, but it was DP wise. And due to the fact of I had 3 separate colors in the line plus the 1000 egg, this guy was like, I believe it was 1000 too much for him to delete. So it was just a really big body on board that he just couldn't get rid of. But overall good, +1 security attack, and all that, and being able to like bottom deck an entire board is fantastic. We're also running 2 Hexablaumons. So I originally put this in with the idea of, again, another piece to fight against Mother Shoto. I then came to the realization it's great for the mirror match. And there was a few other matchups, again, we'll talk about it in this Saturday's video in the podcast, where this card came up as other ways to kind of stop opponents' plays. Not even like the bottom decking of a Tamer, it was just the whole opponent's turn effect. This card is so good for the deck. I feel like it's going to become a mandatory as a card to maybe run even as a one-of in the future for the deck. It can just shut down so many plays of decks that can't get extra Digivolution sources. So if it's just a single line deck that doesn't go like 3-3, 4-4, 5-5, like if it's just 3-4, 5-6 type, this can shut down so many of those decks where it's like, well, you can't do anything now. On to level 7s. I decided to run 2 Paladin mode aces. My idea essentially was if one was in security, the other one is most likely in deck, so that way I could always see one if I need it. The other one is if one had been trash and I ever Digivolved into this, I could put it back into the deck to always guarantee a white level 7 to try and get free memory back. But also, worst case scenario, if the match is ever dragged on, if I had always had one going in the trash, I could loop my deck, so then I was never really going to deck out, my opponent was. That, I will say, never came up, but the idea was there, so it was nice to have. This being in security a few times did actually come up and help me, just being too big for them to deal with. On to Tamers. We are running 4 Davis and Kens. It is a must-have, it is ridiculous, it is stupid, it is broken. Play either a Vmon or Wormmon for 0, to then immediately afterwards just kind of start doing your DNA stuff, and then when Digivolving, you can gain a memory if you're Digivolving into a blue or green Digimon, and then if you DNA, trash free sources from any of your opponent's Digimon, any free sources that is, so then means your BT60 Imperialdramon's more likely to go off, to like suspend stuff, or just get rid of some pesky pieces. And then when you get multiple, so like that's 3 for 1, you suddenly have 2 on board, that's 6 sources, 9 sources, 12 sources. It gets ridiculous. It gives the deck everything it really wants to help deal with some problems. Again, if you were to hit this deck, I feel like this is the card to hit. Or more so now after playing in the tournaments and stuff, I feel like this is the card you would hit if you wanted to try and hit Imperialdramon. You'd put it down to 1. Alongside it, we are running 2 BT3 Davises, memory setter, as well as search as our pieces. So we get the best of both worlds. We get a memory setter, as well as we get more searching capability to help the consistency of the deck keep going, so we can find pieces. There were so many times this got played either by security or I was playing it, and I'd be like, right, search top 3. And the first card would be like a Davis and Ken, or it would be some form of card that's not a Digimon card for me to add. And the next 2 cards is like XVmon, Stingmon. Like, well, I guess I'm grabbing those 2. And the more often than not, when that was happening, my opponent would look at me and be like, well, aren't you happy about an XV and Stingmon? And be like, I'm going to play it off like, yeah, I am. You now know I have an XV and Stingmon. But I also already have 2 other XV and Stingmons in hand. I'm looking for other things. Then, lastly, onto options and the last cards of the deck. I'm running 3 Return to the Primogenitor. I was running the DNA card, but again, with the idea of Mother, I decided I wanted to go back to playing 3 of this, so that way if I had one of these on board, I could swing with my level 5. If they block with Mother, I go, right, I'll pop this and Digivolve to keep my line alive, and do some other plays. That was the idea behind going back to 3 of this. I do like playing at 3, and it did come up quite often. Just in general as a card, fantastic card to have. So this has been my top 8 as deck list for Glasgow Regionals of Imperialdramon. I hope you've all really enjoyed it. Going to be playing a lot more, hopefully playing a lot more in-person regionals in the future, as long as they come over towards the UK side of things. We had an absolute blast there. Like I say, we'll talk about all these experiences in Saturday's video. Myself, everyone else from the previous podcast of Trevor, Shadow of Laughter, Amy, and we'll also be having another friend, Shiro, join us, as he was there as well. And there are going to be multiple deck profiles, other things. A deck profile that will be coming out later in the week and stuff will be a triple deck profile in a singular video, since I got to top 8. Trevor, Shadow of Laughter, and Amy went into the team event. I'm going to give you their deck profile, and as for how far they're placed, you're going to have to wait until the deck profile to figure that out, to find that out. So make sure you tune in. That'll come out during the week before the podcast at the end. But again, once again, this has been my top 8 Glasgow Regional Imperialdramon deck profile. Hope you've all enjoyed it. Catch you all in the next one.